you are Regiment. Right? Do I know you? I know those faces. I know all those faces. Right? Those were the training class from 2 years ago. Right? Now a new training class starts in November with a new bunch of officer trainees. This time when I go into it, I go in with the 2 assistant lecturers. Right? So it's a bigger team, a stronger team going to do the lecture. A point brought up a little earlier is a terrorist who believes passionately in what he's doing comes and he fires at you and you blow him away. Is that the end of his matter? Is that the end of the matter? No, because he has a son. And the son will spend the rest of his life looking for you. He'll spend the rest of his life looking for you. My son, who lives in Florida, he has a simpler solution. He says you have to kill your father and the son. That's his answer to it. Kill your father and the son. One thing. But that is life. Right? So what I will do now is, again, mention how proud I am of 1 year's training. Right? What means we get a whole year of military history people have. And we have the panel up here, and they will answer questions as you ask them, and I will ask Wendy to be the moderator.
If you have any questions, I can take them now, or if you're not sure, I can give you a choice of questions to choose from. Is it going to be A or B? Well, okay.
I want to ask a question. And although we speak about so many deaths and so much disaster in war, do the wars that were fought, have they helped mankind in living a better life?
Anyone want to answer that? I'm not sure. I think I'm going to pass that one on. I don't want to give any big opinions right now. I've now started in this, and I don't think that my opinion is a very strong one right now. Mr. Calshon has triple years of experience in warfare, and humbly, I think you should answer that. I'll give my opinion to my family at home later.
The answer to this one is, if we had not stopped World War II when we did, what would have happened with the Holocaust?
Hello, to that question of the war that fought at first purposes, if you understand the just war theory and you follow it correctly, it had just wars in the world. So, and they served their purposes. Plenty of the wars were unjust, so they had no purposes, but it had just wars. And if you go back to biblical times, you will see that just wars were fought, like the wars at Jericho.
Yeah, but I think man always needs revenge, huh? You don't think that in everybody they always want revenge? You always have that in the back of your mind. Some people wouldn't forget 5-10 years ago by and they still remember what happened. And as he said, Mr. Calshon said that a son or a daughter or somebody will come back to revenge, take revenge for what happened to their ancestors way back when.
And that is a part of the just war therapy that people have to add to, that revenge never done. And once you put that to the just war theory, war could stop.
But rules are made to be broken, huh? So we can have all the rules in the world and man will always break them at some point.
May I remind everybody that on the 3rd of March, 1939, nearly 6 months before the Second World War started, Hitler made a speech in the Reichstag, and he said, I want Trinidad as part of the German Reich. Right? Now, if he had succeeded, do you think you would have been among the Herren folk, the chosen people?
We'll be talking German today.
That's right. You'd be part of the Untermensch. The Untermensch will be subhuman. Right? None of us here would be the Herren folk. Right? So there are just words.
Hello? Yes, in your essay you define, a just war and the theory of realism. But who is the final arbiter on, what is a just war and what is realism really? Using an example of when civilians may be okay, get it comes to sacrifice civilians for the sake of mankind. Who is the final arbiter on that? Who really decides that, and if that happens, who holds anyone accountable if it's done, in the sake of selfishness or for the sake of realism?
I didn't actually, I only heard words, certain words, I heard the last 2 sentences you said. I heard a few words in between before that. I heard sacrifice. Maybe the mic was too close. Or repeat it. Anybody could say it.
He said, who decides what is a just war? Basically.
It's a little more than that. You hear me clearly now? Hear me clearly now? Yes, what I was asking was who is the final arbiter on a just war and on realism as well. You defined realism in your essay. And you gave the example of civilians being sacrificed when necessary, but who decides on when that is fair, or who decides on, if that is the right thing, and how does that relate, how does realism in that case support the theory of a just war?
I'm not exactly sure. I think wouldn't it be it's either the UN Council or President. It would be like President Bush in that case. It would decide if it's a just war to be fought. You see, the war on terror today is as new to me as it is to you. I'm still learning it, and I'm still trying to understand it also. Go ahead.
I just heard the word UN. The United Nations was set up to stop war. Has the United Nations succeeded at all, anywhere?
So who is it
Historians.
that decides if it's a just war or not? Is it
Historians.
It's who?
Historians.
Historians.
Okay, thank you very much. Question of whether any good came out of war. I mean, we know a lot of bad things come out of war. And one of the worst things are the collateral damage, which would be, say, the innocent men, women, and children who are destroyed. But something good comes out of war. I'm not saying war is good, but there's a good side and a bad side to it. And one of it is that the scientific inquiry has been stirred during the war. Now, we all know, for instance, we live in a modern age where we have a lot of, we get around pretty quickly. The media now has been improved a lot, television and all these sort of things. The Germans had invented the jet engine around 1938. But it coming down to the end of the war, this is when the Germans first came out with a jet plane. And since then, we have lived in a jet age. Now, at the same time, it also spurred the nuclear age to come about, right? With the Americans proceeding with haste to invent the nuclear bomb, which they dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which was bad. We all knew what it was bad, but at the same time, it issued in a new sort of a realm, which you could consider as being good or bad. Consider another thing that two of the guys who worked in the British, I would call it probably Secret Service, were the guys who won the Nobel Prize for elucidating the structure of DNA. And we live in an age now where we know about genetic engineering and all these sort of things. And we can progress very far. And all these things probably happen because of the brains that had to work a bit harder during wartime. Now, I want to come back to a just war. And I feel that a just war, there's no such thing as a real just war for everybody. It is justified. War is justified. And I would like to probably disagree a bit with Gaylord. When Germany, when Hitler and the Holocaust occurred, nobody stopped to think that the Western world was anti-Semitic. And in the United States of America, a Jew was a second-class citizen. And we insulted Jews down here by calling them stingy. If you wanted to tell somebody they were stingy, you called them a Jew. When I was growing up, I knew that. So they grew up as second-class citizens. I remember seeing on the television, on E or one of these things, history of beauty contests in America. And in 1945, a Jewish girl won Miss America. And she became an old lady, she was interviewed, and she said, I had to justify to people why I deserve to be Miss America because I was Jewish. And it is quite possible that Hitler just took that to a different level. And it's what we have been fed is that we might have ended up like slaves or some sort of thing like that. But this thing about improving the human race has always been with us, right? We did it with other animals like horses and dogs and all these sort of things. So it's no different. It just was taken to a different level. Thank you.
2 points that came out of that. Number one, in 1940, a referendum was held in the United States of America as to whether Jewish people should be allowed into America or not. Now you know today, the Jews virtually control America, right? The money comes from the Jews, the power comes from the Jews. What's the name of the big movie producer? Spielberg. Spielberg is a Jew, right? But 82% of America voted in 1940, no Jews in America, please. Right? And the second point that I want to raise is, was the space race a war? It most certainly was, because the expenditure involved and the feeling between the Americans and the Russians over the space race was a war. Does anybody in the room have on a pair of sneakers? No sneakers? Yes, I see a pair of sneakers, right. That is a direct result of the space race. Sneakers were designed for spacemen. Right? The whole concept of sneakers came from the space race. Thank you.
What I've learned recently is that the United States practice a certain amount of ethnic cleansing in their immigration policies from people wanting to migrate from different parts of Europe. They had ways of measuring their ears and their heads and their noses and so on to decide whether they would be intelligent enough to live in the United States. Right, and I think Hitler may have got the idea or the initial research and may have, of course, taken it to an extreme level. So as far as a just war, in my opinion, there is nothing such as a just war. It may be just to each individual side, but as a whole, a war cannot really be justified. Thank you.
Well, my personal opinion is that the First World War was not a just war. It should not have happened. There were treaties written in those days. All of the country All of the countries had treaties between each other. And like I said before, rules are made to be broken. So why not break the treaties and stop the war? That's why all of the mobilization happened. Germany had, it was Austria's back.